Well, welcome everybody to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. I'm Harper LeBel. Our host is Vincent Turner. Logan Landers is our engineer. And Vincent, let's start off with some interesting news here in the National Football League going into week 6. We've had our first firing, and that happened in New York with the Jets. They're 2-3, and Robert Saleh has been let go. They still have more points than they've given up, but do you think that was an early decision? Do you think it was right on time? Is it something they could have postponed till later? What are your thoughts initially going into this week and waiting till Monday afternoon, early Tuesday, and letting your head coach go?
Shock value. I was shocked, man. I thought the young man, Coach Saleh, has done an outstanding job. The guy's had success. The guy was a defensive coordinator out there at San Francisco. He came into the situation in New York, looked very confident. But let's be honest. I'm going to ask you, because the great thing about 100 Yards of Football and why I'm so excited and why this show is so good. See, we don't have people coming from the streets. We don't have people coming from sports bars. What I'm glad about, I got royalty in front of me. This gentleman played in the league, played with some of the greatest players. So his opinion is better than over a million of y'all out there trying to give your own opinion. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. LeBel. My personal opinion, it was a beef between him and Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers was behind him getting let go. And I'm going to say this. Remember when Coach Saleh, he fined Aaron Rodgers at the beginning of the training camp taking a trip to Egypt. Now tell us, from your standpoint, your experience, you being around some of the greatest football players, Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Deion Sanders, there's respect on your name. Tell us honestly, what happened with the Jets? Was Aaron Rodgers behind that, Harper?
I can't say that he wasn't. I have to admit, when you look at what happened just a couple of weeks ago after they score a touchdown and Saleh wants to give Aaron a hug and he gets that little push, that was an uncomfortable moment for me. I thought for sure that Aaron would just put his arm around him or pat him on the shoulder. You know, you're trying to celebrate a score, something that you've done well, and you get nothing in return. And the reaction that both of them had, where it was weird for me, but it didn't seem like it was so for them. So obviously your general manager, obviously your owner, the president of the club, they had a meeting. They finalized this without Aaron being around. But I think Aaron may have been contacted. Absolutely. Here's where it's different for me, though, Vincent, is that Aaron's contract, it's not a 12-year deal. It's not a 5-year deal. There's not much time left. So I don't know if they really took his input into serious consideration. They might have said something, hey, Aaron, can we win with Robert? And he may have said yes. He may have said no. We're not there. I don't know. And I don't think that's going to come out until the book is written years later. But regardless of that, Robert had time there before Aaron got there, and he just wasn't able to churn it to the point where they're happy with it. 2-3, what if they scored 98 points? They've given up 85. The stats, to me, don't look like, why would you fire a guy this early? But obviously there's some things in that locker room. There are some things that are going on outside of the normal football world that we're exposed to, that were a big part of that.
I'm going to say this. Something I read about Woody Johnson yesterday, the Jets owner. He said in a comment, we have a very talented football team, and we need to win now. That's why I'm saying landed on Aaron Rodgers. Of course, in my opinion, they contacted Aaron Rodgers on the back channels, and I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers' endorsement was not good of Coach Saleh. And that's all I got to say today here on 100 Yards of Football.
Yeah, we'll find out more about it as the weeks progress. But initially right now, especially if they start turning things around, they do better in the division. They take care of their business, so to speak. We'll see whether or not that turned out to be the best move they could have possibly made. Hey, every team is loaded with talent. Every team is loaded with first, second, third rounders, free agents that make it, guys that have been brought in from other organizations. That's the way the league is. The best of the best play in the league. And if you've got the best of the best on your team, it's how do you get them all to play together? How do you get them to all play as one, to be a little less selfish and a lot more involved with the team atmosphere? That's not always easy to do. And maybe Robert had lost that portion of the team. That is key.
Well,
Find out.
like I say, they got a big game coming up this week. They got the Buffalo Bills on the road
On Monday night. Now, that's not going to be one of the games that we feature, but we will look at a couple of the others. Let's start with the games of the week that we have. We pick 5 each and every week. Our first game will be, in my opinion, one that's going to really matter, at least out west, when you've got a team that needs to turn it around as much as the Jets do in the San Francisco 49ers. They go on the road, and they'll be taking on Seattle at 8:15 kickoff on Prime Video Thursday evening. Here's what we're going to be looking at. Brock Purdy, he's got 65 completion percentage. That's not really a whole lot. He's got 1,374 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Do we expect more out of Brock Purdy? Are we angry if we're a 49er fan at the way that he's been playing? Do we want to fire him? Do we want him to be benched? Jordan Mason is averaging 5.1. That's a pretty good number. He has 105 carries, 536 yards. He's got 3 touchdowns. And Juan Jennings is their leading receiver right now. 22 receptions for him, 377 yards. He has 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 17.1 per reception, My opinion right now, Vincent, is the 49ers are just struggling to put a team on the field. They've got a lot of injuries that they've been dealt with, a lot of guys that are questionable, a lot of guys that are doubtful. They end up playing. They don't have 100%. There's some issues that they have to get through from a health perspective.
I think with the 49ers, I think Brock Purdy is going to be all right. I think, as you just said, they've just had so many injuries. But the key point to me with the 49ers, the team that makes their team go overall from an offensive and defensive standpoint, he's the best back in the league, Christian McCaffrey. With him out of the lineup, that's really hurting the 49ers, in my opinion. They don't seem like the same offense. They don't seem like they have the same smoothness, the same zeal, because he's the best back in the league. And one thing about Christian McCaffrey, he not only can rush the football good, he's a good receiver out of the backfield. So that opens things up for Deebo Samuels on the outside, Brendan Ayuk, George Kittle. To me personally, if he's able to come back, and I don't know what week he's going to return, I think that's going to really help the 49ers a lot. That's the major injury to me that's hurting the 49ers overall.
Yep, they've had a lot of problems getting the guys on the field, as we mentioned, including Ayuk's contract, and then Trent Williams, of course. Those are 2 guys that are pivotal to their offense. They signed Bosa to a huge deal last year. They're not going to be able to be keeping the same chemistry because they're going to have different guys every year. Obviously, every team does, but how do you keep the ones that you have happy, especially if there's contract disputes that you've been having with some of your superstars? Be interesting to see how they settle it. Let's look at the 3-2 Seattle Seahawks real quick. They've impressed me, especially on defense. But let's look at Geno Smith, 71% completion for him, 1,466 yards. He has 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Kenneth Walker, 37 touches for him, 202 yards. He has 4 touchdowns. And DK Metcalf, 28 receptions for him, 15 yards per reception, and he's got 2 touchdowns. I like Seattle in the smoothness of the transition from a coach, from some changes that you've had in your personnel, to be in 3-2 at this point in the season. You win this game, you're 4-2, and you're pretty much in the driver's seat out there in the West.
I've been very impressed, as I agree with you, with Mike McDonald, their new head coach. I didn't see Seattle being 3-2 at this standpoint, and I'm going to give credit to Geno Smith. Geno Smith has played very well for the Seahawks the last couple of years. And shout out to my man, you just mentioned him, Kenneth Walker from the 901, Memphis, Tennessee. Much love to you, brother, today here on 100 Yards Football. But I got to agree with you, Harper. I'm surprised, but Mike McDonald, first-year head coach and a defensive coach. The Seahawks have been a very impressive football team, along with the team that beat them last week, the New York Giants.
Well, surprises are the word of the day. Then, would you be surprised, folks, when you're listening to the show at 4-1 Washington Commanders when I announce that to you? 4-1. What a change they've had from picking second overall to where they're 4-1 right now. And let's give Jaden Daniels some props. 101 reception or completions out of 131 attempts, 77% out of a rookie. He's got 1,335, or excuse me, 1,135 yards, throwing 4 touchdowns, 2 receptions. Okay, whatever, but wow, he is getting the ball out. He made a throw on a little waggle where he's rolling out to his right, hit a receiver right on the sideline. I saw him last year in person when he was at LSU. I go, that's what they brought him in to do. He is a phenomenal quarterback. He's playing really well right now as a rookie, still learning things. You blitz me, the drop guys back into coverage. He's being able to see things. I think the game is going to start slowing down here in the second half for him. But they're 4-1. Brian Robinson, 73 carries for him. He's averaging 4.5 per. He's got 5 touchdowns. They go into Baltimore in the Battle of the Beltway. And I have to tell you, a couple weeks ago, we were thinking, what's wrong? Harbaugh needs to be fired. Now they're 3-2. Lamar Jackson is playing well, 65% for him. He's up from where he was a little bit earlier in the year. 1,206 yards. He has 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. One other number that I'm going to give you, this guy, number 22, if you haven't heard of him, his name is Derrick Henry. Watch out for him. He's a load, 6.0. Every time he touches the ball, he's got 6 touchdowns as well, with his 572 yards in the first 5 weeks of the season.
I'm going to be honest. Dan Quinn, I got to give you love, man. You leaving the Atlanta Falcons as you did, being fired, and when the Commanders hired you as a head coach, I did not see this the first year. Then I got to give much respect on his name, the pretty boy, the model of the NFL, Mr. Cliff Kingsbury, the OC, because I think he's had a lot to do with Jaden Daniels being very successful this year. That's a pretty good Washington football team, man, no doubt about it. In my opinion about the Baltimore Ravens, watching them have that big win over Cincinnati last week, and with Lamar Jackson, I still don't think he has enough help on the outside. But with him and Derrick Henry, after that win over Cincinnati, Harper, I started thinking about a little bit about New Orleans in February 2025. I started thinking about the Ravens as a Super Bowl contender and finally getting there with Lamar Jackson under the center. So what I'm going to say on Sunday, this game is going to be the pupil against the master, Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. It's going to be must-see TV on Sunday. Back to you, Harper.
Well, you got 2 teams that can put the ball on the ground, carry it, and get some yards. Let's look at some of the numbers. For Washington, 178 yards per game. They're number 2 in the NFL. By the way, the number 1 team is the Baltimore Ravens. They're 211 yards per game. Washington is scoring 31. They're number 1 in the league there. Guess who's number 2? It's Baltimore at 29 points a ball game. Their defense is basically where I think this game is going to be determined and who is able to break the other's defense just a little bit more. Points against. Washington allows 23 points per ball game. That's ranked 20th, and Baltimore averages giving up 25 points per game. So both teams are going to be able to score. I'm not a betting guy, but if I were, I'd take the over on this one because it doesn't seem like either is going to be able to stop the opponent's offense. Let's move on to Sunday games. At 1 o'clock, the second one would be Tampa Bay at New Orleans. This is almost a must-win game, if you ask me, Vincent, because the Falcons right now are playing well enough, and they're trying to distance themselves. New Orleans had a game on Monday night where they lose at Kansas City on a short week. Thank goodness they get to have a game at home, but both teams are hungry for a victory right now here in this one. Tampa is 3-2. New Orleans is 2-3. Derek Carr has had a great start, but he's kind of sputtered here of late. And Baker Mayfield, he has 101 completions at 153 attempts, 1,100 yards for him, 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Vincent, your thought about this game?
I look at Tampa Bay, man. I look at how Baker Mayfield saved his career going to Tampa. He's playing like the guy that was drafted number 1 overall the last couple of seasons ago. The man has played outstanding football for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is one of those teams now that I'm taking very seriously and maybe looking on the outside as being a team that can make the playoffs and cause some problems. And I want to say this today on 100 Yards Football. We talk about all the great receivers in the game, from Justin Jefferson to Jamar Chase. We talk about Drake London. But we need to put some respect on the young man from Texas A&M, the Aggie man, Mr. Mike Evans. What he's had 10, 1,000-yard receiving yard seasons. Mike Evans is one of the top 5 receivers in the game. Now, to my people, who that nation? Who that nation? The first 2 weeks, what the Saints, they scored over 40 points, right? And they pounded the Dallas Cowboys, right? That was averaging almost 40 points after 2 weeks. And I heard maybe the greatest offense ever, the greatest offense on turf, Derek Carr, MVP. And I told people down there throughout the state of Louisiana, pump your brakes. The NFL is a long season. It changes week in and week out. You play tough games. As the gentleman just mentioned, Mr. Harper LeBel, everybody has talent. So who that nation? You 2-3. Your quarterback, Derek Carr, is hurt. You're going with a guy from Fresno State, what's his name, Jake Hayner. But I heard rumblings with the offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, Gary Kubiak's son. He's having problems with the head coach, Dennis Allen, because he wants Spencer Rattler to be the starter. So it looks like it's problems down there in New Orleans. All I'm going to say is this, and I'm going to turn it back over to you to Harper. New Orleans, you better win this game on Sunday. You're going to go to 2-4. Yeah. Back to you, Mr. Harper.
Yeah, that's going to be a struggle for them. You know, you bring in Rattler and you give him a little bit of time in the preseason. Is he ready? Has he proven himself? I guess not. That's the thing. I guess not. And we're going to find out. Here's a couple of things that you may want to pay attention to. Tampa's averaging 25 points a ball game. That's number 9 overall in the league. New Orleans is 28 points a ball game. They're number 4. So each team can score. Tampa's giving up 22 a ball game. That's 17th. And New Orleans gives up about 19 points a game. And so they're in the top 10. You would figure a team that's in the top 4 scoring and the top 8 in defending would not be struggling the way the Saints are. But for obvious reasons, they are 2-3. And you are what your record says you are. That's basically that's a Bill Parcells quote that I picked up years and years ago. Doesn't matter, just got to win. And it's going to be an interesting game there at 1:00 in New Orleans. 4:00 game, Pittsburgh, 3-2. Remember, they were 3-0. They're 3-2 right now. They travel to Las Vegas. They'll be taking on the Raiders. Josh Fields has had a pretty good season so far. He's trying to resurrect it. He's 92 out of 136. He's got 961 yards in the air, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Najee Harris is about 3.3 yards per carry. I think that's a little bit low for what I would expect from a Steeler team. 82 touches for him, 272 yards. He has not scored yet. No touchdowns for him. Gardner Minshew. He has 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 99 total completions out of 140 attempts. He's got a little more than 1,000 yards. I'm not sure where I go with this game right now. I think the Steelers, with their name, the recognition, with Mike Tomlin, is going to try to turn things around. But it's been kind of up and down with the Raiders. And I don't know what team I'm going to get. I'm going to get the good team, the one that is winning and can beat just about anybody, or am I going to get the team that struggles offensively and can't stop anybody on defense? Vincent.
Wow. You got two organizations that has the history of this game in the National Football League. And when I think about when the Steelers and Raiders get together, I think about when I was a little guy growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, and I think about Bradshaw, Franco, man, Joe Green, Dwight White, L.C. Greenwood, Lynn Swan, Stallworth, and how they went against the Raiders, the Snake Stabler, Tatum, Atkinson, Ted Hendricks, Otis Sistrunk, Marv Herbert, Jim Otto, and how them games would be physical, and how Mel Blount used to punish Cliff Branch. And I look on Sunday, and I'm going to start with the Steelers. I'm pulling for Justin Fields at the quarterback position, man. For some reason, I don't know if it's Arthur Smith, but the offense just don't seem explosive enough because you got a guy on the outside from the University of Georgia, George Pickens, that should be eating a little bit at a high level. In the Raiders, your best player wants out of Las Vegas and Devontae Adams. And I'm one that's really want to think about, you went with Gardner Minshew. He's a guy I call stopgap. He's not going to get you to the Super Bowl. What was that key stat that you brought up, Harper? Not the 4 touchdowns, but the 5 picks. That one he threw last week that I think Patrick Surtain Jr. took back, about 100 yards? That was really the key in that win that lost to Denver last week. So I'm wondering, is Antonio Pierce, who did a lot of talking, he was talking at the end of the year and he was talking at the beginning of the year how good the Raiders are going to be. I'm looking at maybe there might be some problems because Devontae Adams wants out of Las Vegas. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. What can you get for a guy that doesn't want to be there? You've got a commitment on a contract, but he does not want to play there. That's very interesting to me. It speaks volumes. I don't know that culture. I know that there has been a few guys that have ended up getting in some kind of trouble or another, traffic accidents, dealing with some of the crazy that can go on in Las Vegas. And I just don't – I don't know. So I'm not going to comment on it. I think we all can consider things that take place there, but is it conducive to winning NFL football games?
I would say this, though. They got a very good football player who's got a chance to be – he plays your position. He's got a chance to be one of the best ever played this game, Brock Bowers. He has played really well this year for the Raiders at the tight end position.
He's a talent, and they want to get him the ball, but obviously there's some issues going on there. All right, let's look at the 425 game, the final one that we'll be talking about here today. That's where Detroit at 3-1. They come off a bye week. They're going to be going to Dallas. The 3-2 Cowboys will be hosting in Jerry's World. Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions, 88 out of 124. He's got 1,015 yards. He has 5 touchdowns. A little high with 4 picks. A little high for what I would expect out of him. Jamar Gibbs, 54 touches, 285 yards for him. He has 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 5.3 yards per carry, though. Detroit can still run the ball. Matter of fact, they're number 6 in the league right now. They average 151 yards per game. Dak Prescott, 125 out of 191. He's got 1,424 yards. Way up there at the top, near the top with the NFL quarterback comparison. 8 touchdowns, 4 picks for him. Rico Dowdle is their leading rusher. 54 touches for him. He's averaging 4.1 per. He doesn't have any touchdowns, though. Dallas is number 2 in the league at 271 yards per game. Your thoughts here on Detroit heading into Dallas?
Detroit, to me, has a Super Bowl team coming out of Motor City. I want to give kudos to Brad Holmes, the GM who came over for the LA Rams. They have drafted really well. And when Jared Goff, the trade went down, Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford, a lot of people saying Jared Goff had lost it. They say he was on the downside of his career. And I have to say the young man out of California has played real well since he's been there. And I like that Lions football team, man. They got some really good players. Aiden Hutchinson, Amon St. Brown, Jamar Gibbs, Jameis Williams on the outside, David Montgomery. And he got a real good football team. So kudos to Mr. Bite Your Kneecap Off, Mr. Dan Campbell, Texas boy out of Texas A&M. Now to my Dallas Cowboys. Raise up, Cowboy Nation. I've been a fan since 1966. Dak Prescott has played very well this season. That was a big win on Sunday night against the Steelers. I'm going to call him the $60 million man. But Dallas has a lot of problems, still got injuries within the defense. Mike Zimmer did an outstanding job last week in calling the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Defense played pretty well. But the one thing, if Dallas is going to play on a championship level and they playing a team that I consider Super Bowl quality, they got to be able to run the football. Rico Dowdle had 87 yards last week, and you see what happened. that was very efficient. It was very balanced. Dallas moved the ball up and down the field on Pittsburgh Sunday night, but they had key turnovers. I think they had a field goal block. I know they missed 3 scoring opportunities in that game. So Dallas hasn't won a home game this year. They got blasted by New Orleans. Baltimore came in and beat them. This game right here, all I can say is this. This is a measuring stick game. The Cowboys have to run the football. This is the game that you do against a team that we consider Super Bowl quality. Back to you, Mr. LeBel.
Yeah, I think the game will be critically important for this. You mentioned Dan Campbell. Remember last year, we talk about history all the time here on the show. That very unusual primetime game where you bring in 2 offensive linemen. The referee only hears that one of them reported. You get a touchdown and it's called back. I can't tell you how many times that Detroit has played in Dallas in the past 2 decades. It seems like they're always there and hardly ever get a chance to play in Ford. But be interesting to see how they go back with a little payback in mind. You know, we could have beaten you last year, didn't get that chance. Let's see if we can't make that happen this year. But definitely a feature game. It comes to featuring, hey, how come we didn't talk about the Chiefs? Hey, they're undefeated. How come we didn't talk about the Vikings? They've got bye weeks. Look at the bottom of the screen. We're not going to talk about them this week, but we will plenty as future weeks go. The Rams and the Dolphins are also getting a bye week, a chance to rest up a little bit before they play in week 7. Excuse me. Any final thoughts before this weekend? You know, we got the Falcons here at home. We didn't get to mention them, but some interesting things going on in the league. We did talk about the Jets and their new coaching change. But Vincent, final thoughts from you.
My final thoughts today, I'm going to bring the energy. Kudos to the USC Trojans, Mr. Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings being undefeated right now. I'm happy for you, young man. Go Vikings, Justin Jefferson, but my man USC, Mr. Sam Darnold.
He is probably up for comeback player of the year, no doubt. Guess what? Throw a big offensive line in front of you, and you're going to get a chance to do a lot of things. Ask Jared Goff about that. Ask Sam Darnold about that. Ask some guy named Tom Brady what it means to have a really good offensive line in front of you. Drew Brees, you name it, any one of them, they'll all say the same thing. Offensive line. And Detroit has 4 of their 5 guys are number 1 draft picks. So interesting how that's going to turn out. Well, we want to thank you for tuning in to another show of 100 Yards of Football. This is our NFL edition. We're so grateful that you're be a part of our broadcast. We thank you for being a portion of it. We hope you have a great day, everybody. We want to thank you again for being a great listener, and please tell a friend. We appreciate it. So for Vincent Turner, for Logan Landers, I'm Harper LeBel, wanting you to have a wonderful day and appreciate you being tuning in to 100 Yards of Football.